Today, Ryan returns fire in our MuscleTrux war as his Chevy 454 SS gets dropped into the weeds to match stance for stance with Kevin's Lightning. Also, we'll show you how to breathe new life into your worn-out truck by doing a simple, hand tools only engine swap. And it's easier than you think. It's all today here on Trucks.
Hey, welcome to Trucks. We'll check out the changes on our 94 Lightning. The most obvious thing that you're going to see right off the bat is the huge drop in altitude, along with a new set of tires. But one of the things we kept were these aluminum factory wheels, which offer kind of a signature look to these first-gen Lightnings. One thing that's not so obvious is the huge honking traction bars from LFP and the beefier rear ADDCO sway bar. All of that stuff together is going to make this truck handle way better than it ever did from the factory. So I guess it's only fair that we pay a little attention to Ryan's 454 SS and even out the playing field a bit.
Yeah, and although these trucks were pretty impressive right out of the box, well, there's always room for improvement. So today, we're going to show you how to give these 454s a lowering and handling package, including some stickier and much better looking wheels and tires. And what we'll end up with is a great looking truck that still hauls like a truck and hauls a little you-know-what as well. But before we start dropping this SS, well, you may have noticed the steel roll pan that we got from Summit Racing. And that and our Goodmark Cal induction hood both got a slick coat of black paint. And we also replaced our bent up front bumper with a steel bumper from LMC that doesn't have the impact strip for a cleaner look. And the icing on the cake, well, it costs less than replacing the stocker. Now under hood, the short block was in decent shape, but the top end needed some help. So we added an Edelbrock cam, cylinder heads, and fuel injection system. Topped them off with some good-looking GM valve covers and let it all breathe through some ceramic-coated headers. Now we've got the computer for the EFI mounted right here in the glove box, along with the connector for the handheld tuner. And if you guys remember, when we first got this truck, well, the center console was missing. But Dave Chulepis from the North American Truck Club came through for us big time and gave us his extra center console he had kicking around. It looks like new and really finishes off this interior. Today we're using Beltec's 3-inch up front and 4-inch out back system on this truck. It comes with drop spindles and lowering springs up front and the shackles and hangers bolt in place out back. But with just a 4-inch drop, we don't have to C-notch the frame. And a lot of you Chevy guys wanted to make sure the old 454 hooked up. So we picked up a set of CalTracs Traction bars to plant the power. Now there's a bit of a clearance issue with the CalTracs on some lower trucks. So we boxed up our Beltec hangers and shipped them off to Calvert Racing. They clearanced them for the traction bars, re-powder coated them, and shipped them back. And now we'll have the stance we want and the traction we need.
We're also using Beltec's Street Performance shocks on all 4 corners. And since it's such a simple drop out front, we're going to get the heavy lifting done first, get this rear down on the ground. There are just a handful of bolts and 2 connectors holding the bed in place. And although a drop kit can be installed with the bed on, it's just plain easier with the bed removed, giving you open access to the entire rear frame section.
The shackles give you several different options for ride height. We're hitting bottom with the lowest setting, but we can adjust from there if need be.
With the weight off the rear axle, the front spring hangers get removed, with a little bit of coaxing from a cutoff wheel and an air chisel. And knocking the surface rust off and splashing on a couple of coats of Zero Rust spray will really help with future rusting issues. The CalTracs bars use an aluminum sleeve in the leaf spring that replaces the factory rubber bushing. Now, these are a bear cat to remove, but the easiest way we've found is to drill the rubber out around the edge and then chisel the old bushing and sleeve out. The new bushing is lubed with the provided grease and massaged into place.
The CalTracs eliminate spring wrap by transferring the stored energy through the bar to the front of the spring mount instead of to the leaf spring, and should really make this truck hook up.
But
we're finally getting rid of these passenger car tires, and I can't wait to show you guys the tires and wheels we got picked out for this thing.
Yeah, but you'll have to wait a little longer to see what Ryan's picked out, since we're not quite finished here. The overload leaf kit's removed just because it's no longer needed, but also gives us a little more drop in the suspension.
Now, one of these heim joints is right-hand thread, and the other one's left-hand thread. That way we don't have to remove the bar to set our final preload. We'll do that with the vehicle weight on the ground. For now, we'll just put everything in hand tight.
Now, the driver's side spring hanger is pretty much the same story as the passenger side, except for the nuts are harder to get to with this fuel tank in the way. But the good news is that to remove the stock hanger, you don't have to disconnect your e-brake cables. All you have to do is V-cut the stamped holes. The cables pull right out. Beltec provides a bracket for the cable to go into. It just slides in, locks into place. Perfect.
All right, once we get our sway bar mounted to the axle, we'll need to mark and drill a hole in the C-channel frame for our end links. And we'll do that once we get the bed installed and the full weight of the truck back on the suspension. The old chocks get removed to give us a little more clearance to mount the rear sway bar. We're using Beltec's Street Performance shocks all the way around on the SS. And they bolt right in place to the factory shocks.
Up next, it's new springs, shocks, and a bigger sway bar up front for Ryan's Chevy. And later, it's an all-hand tools direct engine swap that'll actually get you more horsepower. Stay tuned.
Hey, welcome back to Trucks. Today, we're catching up to Kevin's Lightning with the Beltec drop kit on my 454 SS. And so far, we've finished up the rear shackles and spring hangers, as well as installed integrated traction bars from Calvert Racing. And we also added a rear sway bar and installed Beltec Performance shocks.
And the good news is the hard part's already done, because dropping the front on one of these trucks is relatively straightforward with drop spindles, drop coil springs, and performance shocks. Now, these sway bars are already pretty beefy with these trucks from the factory, but we're taking that to the next level as well. While we're in there, we're going to get rid of these co-op tires and circa 1987 aluminum wheels, too.
If you've got a buddy with a regular Silverado that wants a cheap upgrade, save your original sway bar for him. The SS bar is almost a 1/4 inch larger than the regular production unit. Now you just want to loosen the ball joints with your truck in the air. Then let it down to the ground and use a floor jack to control the amount of spring energy that you release carefully. Now, to keep costs down, we're rolling with the stock size rotors, but we are upgrading the pads to the more aggressive EBCs, the same ones we used on the Lightning. Now, we got this stuff from O'Reilly Auto Parts, and Jamie, the guy that works at the parts counter, well, it's pretty clear which truck he thinks is going to win. I couldn't agree more.
All right, Tom. All right. Now, our truck already has eccentric cam bolts in this upper control arm, but in case your truck doesn't, Beltec provides you with a kit to hand to your wheel alignment guy when you take your truck in, because you are going to have a wheel alignment.
Now, the stock sway bar did a pretty good job of minimizing the body roll on this big, heavy truck. But the new sway bar is a giant 1 3/8 in diameter, and it'll do an even better job. Now, the last piece of the puzzle is a decent set of tires and wheels. And when we first got our truck, well, the chrome Super Sport wheels were long gone, and we just had to do better than the junk that was on there. Now, you just can't go wrong with the classic styling of the American Racing Torq-Thrust. We're using 18-inch polished aluminum wheels and a 10-inch width out back and an 8-inch width up front. And this is a sport truck, but it's still a truck. And an 18-inch wheel will leave us a decent amount of sidewall. And these directional Yokohama Advan STs will hopefully get some of that newfound power to the ground. It's got a pretty good looking tread pattern too. Now, you guys remember, Kevin picked up a set of Mickey Thompsons for his Lightning for track day use. We didn't want him to have an unfair advantage, so we picked up a set as well. Hey, welcome back to Trucks. Well, we finally get to see what the Chevy looks like with the suspension done and sitting on its tires and wheels. And I gotta say, it looks pretty darn good, even better than that red pile. Now, like we told you earlier, we wanted to show you an easy way to breathe some life back into a higher mileage Vortec-powered GM truck or SUV. And Kevin's got that solution right outside the door.
And that comes in the form of this HD383 crate engine, which is quite literally a drop-in replacement for your worn-out high-mileage 350.
Now, the truck we're wrenching on today is a 97 Suburban. It's used primarily as a work truck, so the 165,000 miles on it, well, they're hard miles. Now, taking the hood off isn't a requirement to swap the engine, but it makes the job a whole lot easier. It's only 4 bolts.
Now, everybody knows we're a little spoiled when it comes to tools, but this time we're going back to basics to show you guys that it doesn't take a lot of expensive tools to do this engine swap, not much more than what you see here. Now, the last time we took a look at an HD383, we also showed you this 2-part manual from WABA. This shows crystal clear photo instructions, tool guides, torque specs, a beginner's guide, helpful hints at the bottom of almost every page. Now, this manual is instant access to information that it usually takes a career's worth of wrenching to accumulate. So whether you're an expert or a beginner, this is an awesome guide to have around.
Just like in any engine swap, you'll need to strip down to the basics. But the WABA manual will show you exactly what to remove and in what order.
Now, you don't need to evacuate your air conditioning system either. Just leave the lines connected and set the pump out of the way to the side.
Now, not having to evacuate and recharge your air conditioning system, well, it saves you both time and money. And if you're a little intimidated by all the electrical components on a late model engine, well, don't worry. The WABA photo instructions tell you exactly how to unplug each connector.
This may not seem like a big deal, but breaking just one plug may cause you to have to replace an entire harness, and that's not cheap. So these helpful hints really pay off. All right.
All right, this engine's just about ready to come out. We've already removed the converter dust cover and hung the starter out of the way. But before we pull this 350, I've got to unplug the knock sensor, unbolt the converter and the engine mounts, and disconnect the exhaust at the manifold.
Now, even though we're reinstalling some of the parts off the 350 onto the new 383, there's still some things that you're going to need, like hoses, gaskets, filters, and fluids. Well, a quick phone call to Scog & Dickey will get you everything that you need to do this swap. Save you quite a few trips to the parts store. And remember, if you buy your 383 from Scog & Dickey, they'll throw in the $150 WABA manual for free.
Starting with marking the distributor location, the rest of the long block gets torn down. And removing reusable components like the dipstick, valve covers, and exhaust manifolds carefully lets you inspect them and keep them in good shape.
After the break, we'll transfer our parts onto the new 383 to get our 97 Suburban running better than ever.
Yeah. Hey, welcome back to Trucks, where we've yanked out the tired 350 in the Suburban to replace it with a new HT383E. All with basic tools and reusing as many of the good used parts as possible, like the factory exhaust manifolds.
The best part about this crate engine swap is that you can use a lot of the original components, and we know that saves money.
If you do the math and factor in your labor, rebuilding an old engine can actually cost more than the 383 cost to buy.
Now, you don't need an expensive parts washer to get your parts cleaned, and this lower intake sure needs it. The important thing to remember here is to make sure that your EGR ports are nice and clean.
The central injection unit is probably something you don't want to reuse. The originals out of these Vortec 350s were known to be problematic, so it's a good idea to just replace it.
We opted for new chrome valve covers just to dress up the engine compartment a little. And now the long block is ready to just drop right back in.
Reassembly is covered in detail with these manuals, and it's pretty straightforward. But it's helpful to have the books as a resource in case this is your first rodeo.
One of the biggest benefits of this crate engine is that it comes with a factory warranty. So all you need to do is drop it in and fire it up. But use your time and money wisely by replacing regular wear items like filters, thermostats, and hoses, because that just gives you extra insurance for a trouble-free startup. Now all we got to do is make sure the fluids are topped off, throw in a can of this EOS to help with the break-in.
Now with a job like this, it's always a good idea to cycle the key a few times. That'll prime the fuel system so you can check for leaks.
Yep, it's dry. Start it up. Yeah. Now, like we showed you guys, this engine swap can be done in a couple of days with you and your buddies. And thanks to a heart transplant, this old Suburban, well, she's ready to rack up another couple 100,000 miles on the clock. Now, this 383 is going to run great just like it is, with more power than the 350. But you guys know the awesome potential of a 383 stroker. And with a custom tune, you can easily see power gains of 20 or so more horsepower over the baseline. So you can put new life into an old vehicle and kick it in the pants. Thanks for watching Trucks. See you guys next week.
Yeah.
Yep.